Hey everyone, and welcome back to the PTG Rail Routes Learning series for Train Simulator. On today's video, I'm actually going to be revisiting and remaking a video of a journey that I first covered on this channel not too long after I started this channel, back in 2014. So I'm going to be driving a Network Southeast liveried Class 456 on a stopping service between London Bridge and London Victoria via the South London line and Denmark Hill. Originally, when I did this video, it was in a scenario that I created myself in a Southern liveried Class 455, though unfortunately we didn't have the correct Class 455 subclass at that time, so I had to use the wrong subclass and a reskin of that into Southern livery. And so this time I'm driving a scenario which comes with the Armstrong Powerhouse Class 456 on the 1742 service from London Bridge to London Victoria, with a total journey distance of around 8¼ miles. Along the way, our stops will include South Bermondsey, Queen's Road Peckham, Peckham Rye, Denmark Hill, Clapham High Street, Wandsworth Road, Battersea Park, and finally London Victoria. The Class 456 electric multiple unit was manufactured at Brell, York between 1990 and 1991, entering service on the 30th of September 1991. They are part of the BR second generation family of electric multiple units and based on the Mark III body shell. A total of 24 of these units were produced, formed of 2 coaches per train, with a maximum capacity of 152 people seated, and I'm not quite sure how many standing. The maximum speed of these units is 75 miles per hour. Each unit weighs 72.5 tons, and they have a power output of 500 horsepower, running on the 750 volts DC third rail electrification system. Now in the cab of the Class 456, there's a few things that I'm going to do to set up ready for departure. So the first thing I'm going to do, as always, is to move the reversing handle initially into the neutral position, and then as I do so, I'm going to reset the AWS self-test sequence. Now that I've done that, the next thing I'm going to do is, as I can see that the signal is clear there due to the repeater ahead, I'm going to turn off the driver reminder appliance. And now if we go over here just to control the lights, I'm going to turn off the tail lights and press H once to turn the headlights on into the daytime setting. Now that I've done that, the next thing I'm going to do is just to open the windows on each side just for a better sound, so you can really hear the traction motors better and also hear the noise of the wind rushing past. And now I'm going to turn on the passenger saloon lighting by just clicking on the lighting on button there, so the passengers now have lights inside the train. Now that I've done that, I'm just going to now jump to the rear cab of the train by pressing Ctrl and plus, and I'm going to turn on the tail lights here by just clicking on the tail light switch and then jump back to the front of the train again. And that's just to ensure that the red lights are on at the rear of the train. If I didn't do that, then the red lights wouldn't be turned on. Now just to have a quick look at the cab controls here, so I've got a standard Westcode 3-step brake in front of me here, with steps 1, 2, step 3 being full service, and a 4th step which is the emergency setting. I generally try not to brake above step 2 where necessary, simply because I like to have extra brake force if required to bring the train down quicker if necessary. Now in front of us here we've got the horn control, which is a 2-tone horn controlled with the spacebar and the B key. Just above that we've got the brake gauges, with the needle on the right being the brake cylinder pressure gauge, indicating how hard the brakes are applied, and when that's pointing to 0 then the brakes are fully released. If we now continue around the cab, you can see there that we've got the speedometer measured in miles per hour. As already mentioned, the maximum speed for this train is 75 miles per hour, though the maximum speed limit that we will get on this journey today is 60 miles per hour. Now just to the right of that you can see we've got the reversing handle in front of us there, and then the power handle with the 4 power settings being in conjunction with, what's the names of the settings again, just trying to remember. It's shunt for notch 1, series for notch 2, parallel for notch 3, and finally weak field for notch 4. Now that we've had a look around the cab and the basic controls, I'm just going to take a quick look outside, and as I do so, I'm going to change the destination display on the front of the train to the correct destination, so that it shows that we are actually going to London Victoria. And then once I've done that, we're pretty much ready to depart and head out towards London Victoria. So now that we're looking at the front of the train here, if I just press the F8 key, we'll start changing the destination display, and I'm just going to follow that through now until we've got the correct destination. Gretton Hill, Sutton, Tattenham Corner, Thornton Heath, Three Bridges, Tonbridge, and finally Victoria. And then we've got a couple of other options. I'm going to choose the third option here because this is the correct routing. We are going to London Victoria via Peckham Rye. So now I've done the destination display, let's jump back into the train and get off on our journey towards Victoria. Departing away from London Bridge, the starting speed limit is 20 miles per hour, and at this point we've got just under 2 miles to go to our first stop, which is South Bermondsey. I would also just like to issue a correction at this point. When I got into the cab, I said that we need to turn off the tail lights and clicked on the tail light switch there. I forgot that the tail lights were already defaulted to off, though they wouldn't have been in real life, and so actually I turned them on inadvertently, and I've turned the tail lights off again now, as you'll have noticed in the shot where I changed the destination display. So now we've reached 20 miles per hour, I've just idled the power to allow the train to coast until I can accelerate further. The speed limit here is now going up to 60 miles per hour, and I'm going to accelerate once we've crossed the next AWS ramp. So we're now cleared to accelerate straight up to 60 miles per hour. You may have noticed as I pulled away from London Bridge there that actually I'm driving this unit with guard operation. So the guard is controlling the doors and I've got to respond to the guard when I start off. I do know that in later years these units were operated under driver-only operation, and I believe they possibly are today on South West trains, though maybe not, because that's where these units are now in real life with South West trains. And I do know South West trains are more likely to use a guard on the service than Southern, for example, which is who they were with previously. But you can also use this unit with driver-only operation if you would like to do so. So we've just got a Morpeth board warning there for a 40 mile per hour speed limit diverging to the left, which doesn't apply to us, so I can ignore that at this point. We now have a warning for an upcoming 45 mile per hour speed limit. I'm idling the power at this point. I'm going to apply the brakes into step 1 as we approach this signal. And I'm going to go up to step 2 as we enter the 45 mile per hour speed zone, as we are now getting close to our first stop at South Bermondsey Station. Just entered the 45 speed zone and I've now increased the braking to step 2, which should hopefully bring our speed down quite nicely. It was very difficult to work out stopping points on this route, as this is a 2-car train, and most of the stations seem to be designed for stopping points for 4-car trains, so I'm aiming to stop at the 4-car stop sign, as it's just an easy way to have a stop marker. You can see the 3 and 4 sign just coming up on the right hand side there. And so we should now be stopped in about the right place. Departing away from South Bermondsey, the speed limit here is 60 miles per hour, and we've got around 1 mile to go to our next stop, which is Queen's Road, Peckham. At this first signal outside of South Bermondsey, we've now got around 2/3 of a mile to go to our stop. Now approaching a junction here where the London Overground route from Surrey Quays and Canada Water joins us. I'm going to idle the power at this point. Back in the time when this scenario was set, I don't think that that route existed yet, as London Overground still wasn't quite a thing at that point. I'm going to apply the brakes for our stop just as we pass this signal here. Here at Queen's Road, Peckham, I'm aiming to stop at the S sign, which is at the end of the platform. Just releasing the brakes for a moment. So we're going to slow down just slightly too quickly there. Now reapply the brakes to stop next to the S that you can see just coming up. And so this should be about the right place to stop. Departing away from Queen's Road, Peckham, the starting speed limit is still 60 miles per hour, and we've got around 3/4 of a mile to go to our next stop, which is Peckham Rye. At this next signal just coming up, I'm going to idle the power and just allow the train to coast. I'm going to apply the brakes shortly after passing this signal for our stop at Peckham Rye station. So now coming into Peckham Rye, and here at this station I'm aiming to stop at the 4-car stop sign. We have just also had a warning of an upcoming 20-mile-per-hour speed restriction which comes into force shortly after departure away from Peckham Rye. Just releasing the brakes for a moment, as we're stopping slightly too early for the 4-car sign. And so this should be about the right place to stop. Departing away from Peckham Rye, the starting speed limit is 60 miles per hour, though it is very quickly dropping down to 20 miles per hour, and we've got around 3/4 of a mile to go to our next stop, which is Denmark Hill. I've now idled the power just above 20 miles per hour. I'm just going to make a very light brake application to ensure that we're down to 20 there, as I think we just slipped up to 21. And now I'm just going to allow us to coast for a moment at 20 miles per hour until we're able to accelerate further. As you can see here, we're now about to pass a 45 mile per hour speed post. We can now start accelerating up towards 45 miles per hour as we've just passed under that gantry there. At this point we've now got just over half a mile to go to our stop. I've now idled the power at 35 miles per hour. I'm just going to allow the train to coast here. I'm going to start applying the brakes for Denmark Hill Station in a moment as we reach the next signal. Here at Denmark Hill, I'm aiming to once again stop at the 3 to 4 car stop sign, which will be coming up shortly, just after we've passed this bridge area, I believe it is. You can just see it now coming up on the left-hand side there by the CCTV monitors. So we should now be stopped in about the right place. Departing away from Denmark Hill, the speed limit is currently 45 miles per hour, and at this point we've got around 2 miles to go to our next stop, which is Clapham High Street. You may have noticed a gradient change there immediately after departing from Denmark Hill Station. We're actually now climbing on a gradient of 1 in 90 for a short distance, before the gradient then levels out, and then we're going to be on a downward gradient for a short while, at which point I may need to use the brakes to control the train's speed. At this first signal after Denmark Hill Station, we've now got around half a mile to go to an upcoming 30 mile per hour speed limit, and I'm going to idle the power in a moment, just as 2 tracks diverge off to the right. So I'm now just going to allow the train to coast for a minute. We are still on an uphill gradient, which will cause us to lose a little bit of speed along here. The speed limit is 30 miles per hour at the next signal along here, so I'm going to apply the brakes very lightly just before we reach that signal to ensure that we're down to 30 in time. Now approaching the signal, so I've just made a step 1 brake application and we're now down to 30 miles per hour. At this point I'm just going to allow the train to continue to coast until there's any gradient changes, at which point I may need to use the brakes. If we do lose too much speed in the meantime, then I will give us 1 step of power just to bring that back up a bit. We're now just about to cross over Brixton Station, and then joining us will be the Chatham main line, which will be on the right hand side. So we're crossing Brixton Station at this point, and we're just about to now start on a downward gradient of 1 in 137, which will steepen to 1 in 95, so I do now need to keep an eye on our speed, just to ensure that we don't break the speed limits. We'll just brake there down to 28 miles per hour, and the train's starting to coast back up towards 30 once again. The speed limit will be going up to 45 miles per hour shortly. At that point we've got just over half a mile to go to our stop. We're now passing the 45 mile per hour speed post, so I've now released the brakes and now going to give us just a little bit of power to bring our speed up. I'm going to apply the brakes for Clapham High Street as I see the station ahead. So with the Chatham Main Line that I mentioned a moment ago, I am planning on doing another video on that soon in a freight run, because I haven't done too many UK freight runs or freight runs more generally, and so I'm hoping to do a short journey in a Class 92 along that. I can now see the platforms at Clapham High Street coming up, so I've now got the brakes on to bring our speed down. Especially with this downhill gradient here, I wanted to make sure that I braked early enough to get the speed down. And also here at Clapham High Street, I know that the entrance to the platform is at this end of the platform, and there's only one stop marker which is at the other end, so I'm going to try and stop around halfway along. Just going to go slightly further up, and if I stop here, this should be just about the right place. Departing away from Clapham High Street, the speed limit is currently 45 miles per hour, and we've got just over a third of a mile to go to our next stop, which is Wandsworth Road. I'm now going to accelerate along here until we reach around 30 miles per hour. I'm then going to shut off the power to allow the train to coast. We're about to start going downhill again on a 1 in 91 downward gradient, so I do have to keep an eye on our speed just to make sure that the train doesn't run away with me. I can now just see the platform coming up ahead, so I'm just idling the power at this point. Accelerated slightly more than I intended to. Just made a step 1 brake application to bring the speed down towards 30, and I will increase the braking in a moment as we get closer to the platform here at Wandsworth Road. So I'm now in a step 2 brake application. Here at Wandsworth Road Station, I'm aiming to stop just before the signal coming up just ahead. So I'm going to stop just with the signal in view, which is just a little bit before the S sign. Departing away from Wandsworth Road, the starting speed limit is 45 miles per hour, though dropping to 30 miles per hour at the point you can see coming up just ahead. At this point, we've got around 3/4 of a mile to go to our next stop, which is at Battersea Park. Now starting on a very steep upward gradient of 1 in 44. I've just cut the power back to step 3 for a moment to ensure that we didn't accelerate too quick, and now the speed limit is going up to 45 miles per hour. I've just increased to full power for a moment. At the 45 speed post, we had half a mile to go to Battersea Park. I believe that this section of track is no longer in use in real life and may have even closed, just from when I've travelled along here on the train. I haven't actually seen any trains using this bit. In fact, if I remember rightly, I've seen the platforms at Battersea Park on this side are now closed. Just to point out, I idled the power at 35 miles per hour, and I'm now going to apply the brakes as we pass this signal. So much like this section of line went the way of the dinosaurs, I think also services from London Bridge to London Victoria via Denmark Hill have also gone that way, and they're no longer in use today, instead being replaced by London Overground, which of course doesn't give a direct service between London Bridge and London Victoria. So here I'm just going to stop just before the end of the roof. Should be about the right place to stop. Departing away from Battersea Park, the speed limit is dropping to 20 miles per hour just at the end of the platform here. And at this point we've got around 1¼ miles to go to our final stop at London Victoria. Just accelerating to 20 there. I've now shut off the power just to allow the train to coast until we can accelerate further. As soon as we reach this next crossover, I can accelerate to 45 miles per hour, as that is the speed limit now we've crossed over the point. In fact, we've just joined the Brighton main line. To our right here is Battersea Power Station, which is something unfortunately you can no longer see from the railway today due to the way that the area has been built up. I'm now going to idle the power at around 35 miles per hour and just allow the train to coast along here. We're now about to cross the River Thames and I need to slow down for an upcoming 20 mile per hour speed limit, which comes into force around the next signal. So I'm now down to 20 miles per hour in time, but I'm actually going to continue to slow down towards 15 and then release the brakes, just because we have a downhill gradient here as we head towards London Victoria Station, as steep as around 1 in 62. As you can see, our speed is quickly climbing back up towards 20 miles per hour. So I'm going to use the brakes again just to ensure that we don't end up breaking the speed limit here. The gradient has now levelled out, and so I can just allow the train to continue to coast along here. As you may have noticed, there was a number 9 above the signal there, which is a platform indicator. So that indicates that we're going into platform 9 at London Victoria Station. And now going to brake just to slow down to 15 miles per hour as we enter the platform. Even though the track speed is 20 miles per hour, if I remember correctly, when approaching a bay platform in the UK, so a platform where it's the end of the line, then you're supposed to enter at no faster than around 15 miles per hour. So now I'm just going to gradually step the brakes between released and step 1 to bring our speed down gently as we get closer to the buffers here. So you can see there's a platform end directly ahead of us behind the buffers there, and so I'm intending to stop just after the platform end has disappeared. And this should be about the right place to stop. And here we are, arrival at London Victoria. Thank you very much for watching this video. I really do hope that you have enjoyed it. Please don't forget that for the latest channel updates you can find me on Facebook. The link to my Facebook page is in the description of this video. Also in the description of the video is a link to my Patreon page should you wish to sponsor this channel. And also I'm providing a link to where you can purchase the Armstrong Powerhouse Class 456, which I think is a very well put together unit, much like the Class 321, which I released a video on recently. Once again, thank you for watching.